Welcome to Living with Purpose, another extraordinary guest that we have with us, Mr. John Cook, who is a journalist entrepreneur and a co-founder of GeekWire, which is a digital magazine for the IT sector. So, John, welcome to our podcast. And let me have you start off by sharing a little bit about your journey in as a journalist and then into GeekWire, which is, I believe, one of the most influential and well-read journal talking about the digital sector. And I want to preface it by saying that, my two sons, my wife, and I have all been covered in GeekWire. Just so that.
Thanks for that disclaimer.
So just as a disclaimer out there. But John, welcome to Living with Purpose.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here and excited to talk with you here a little bit today. And in terms of your question on how I got to this point at GeekWire, really kind of an evolution of my background and where I grew up. My mom, interestingly enough, was a newspaper reporter in a small town in Ohio, and my dad was an entrepreneur with a family business. So I really feel like I've come full circle here. And I thought that was an apt description of being an entrepreneurial journalist, which is really kind of how I view myself. Just being able to bring those two worlds together of entrepreneurship and journalism and media is really kind of as a dream for me and where I like to play. And so that's kind of the origin story. I was a history major in college, got into journalism and business journalism shortly after college. And I've been covering the technology sector here through a number of publications, most recently GeekWire for the last 14 years, really covering everything from small startups up to the big tech titans of the world.
So, John, just for our listeners to understand what you do, just share a little snippet of GeekWire and your life at GeekWire. And if you have one amazing highlight from that.
Oh, wow. One amazing highlight is going to be challenging to put into words. There have been so many along the journey. I would say in terms of what I do, I serve in the publisher role. So I oversee both the editorial and the business teams. GeekWire is about 10 folks strong, and we're split about evenly between the editorial and the business side. So I spend a lot of my time working on our event strategy, community development, business, new products, and making sure we have the funds necessary to fuel the journalism and editorial side of the house. And that's run by Taylor Soper, our editor, and Todd Bishop, my co-founder. It's really a great job because I get to parachute into both the editorial side and into the business, which I've really enjoyed. And I made that transition about 3 or 4 years ago. Historically, I was, as an entrepreneur doing a little bit of everything in the business, both on the journalism side and the business side. And as of about 4 years ago, made that transition mostly onto the business side, where I spend most of my time at this point. In terms of highlights, gosh, there have been so many because the unique thing about what we get to do at GeekWire is, and as a journalist, and one of the reasons why I like it, is that you get to become a mini expert on things for over a short period of time and then move on to another topic and learn about that. So it's really a fantastic job for people who have a lot of curiosity about a lot of things. And over the years, we've had just amazing opportunities to talk to some of the top business and tech leaders and entrepreneurs in the world. And so having that opportunity to learn from them has been just a wonderful experience, and to tell their stories along the way. And in some ways, we view ourselves as historians who are chronicling the day-to-day aspect of these companies that we're covering.
One of the things I love about GeekWire is that not only do you get to read on a daily basis interesting things that are happening in the tech sector around, Seattle, US, and around the world, but also these wonderful gatherings and convenings that you do that bring so many different people together to talk about all sorts of different things. Your parties are must go to in Seattle for those of us that are in the sector, and then of course the awards, etc., that you do. So we are very fortunate that you've taken this not from just reporting but to also convening and getting people to have a good time in that whole process. Let me just ask you, why do you think purpose is important for you?
Purpose is absolutely important because I'm driven by that original mission of doing journalism. And I don't think you can be a journalist without having a strong purpose. Journalists are typically driven by a mission of finding the truth, being curious, uncovering new information. And frankly, for me, I feel like that's what drives us as a society, is having that constant flow of high quality information that informs us as a society to move forward. And frankly, it's what concerns me right now. I think that's under attack in this country and across the world, really. And so, in many ways, I feel as if my purpose is being challenged globally by the spread of misinformation, the denigration of journalism and media. My profession is really under attack. That's hard to cope with as somebody who really believes in this as a important component of a democratic society. While I feel very strongly about it and feel it's incredibly important for us functioning as a society, I'm not sure where this is headed in the coming years. And frankly, it's very troublesome. I feel as if my purpose is under attack in some ways.
So how do we change that? I mean, how do we get people to think about the importance of purpose in everyday life?
I wish I had the answer to that. I think as it relates to my specific profession, I think we need media literacy as a component of our educational system, that people know how to properly understand media and what is high quality media and what is low quality media. And believe me, there's a lot of low quality media out
Yeah,
there now,
yeah,
especially with everyone now in many ways is a journalist because everyone has a social media account and everyone has an opinion and everybody is sharing that, and not always with good intentions. And so in the perfect world, I would think that we have a value placed on high quality information and high quality journalism. I would say over the last 10, 15 years, that has really been eroded. And that's scary. And I think we see our institutions suffering as a result. So, how we get back to that place where high quality media and high quality journalism is valued, I'm not certain. I'm still an optimist, and I'm hopeful that the pendulum eventually will swing back. You can only eat so much junk food before you get sick of it and you've switched to a healthier diet. And I'm hoping we're in a process of switching to a healthier
yeah,
media
yeah,
diet.
yeah. So tell me a little bit about how you are using your purpose to overcome some of these challenges. Right? What keeps you going?
Yeah, well, I'm firmly of the belief that this sort of journalism and high quality information provided to society is of immense value, and that keeps me going. And I guess I'm old school in that regard. And we've never really wavered from that at GeekWire. We very much believe in following through with the traditional and typical ways that journalists operate, getting the full story, getting people to comment and respond to our inquiries, reaching out to those people to get their input, and then putting forth our best effort to know what is actually happening in a situation. And we're committed to that. It takes resources and effort and extra effort to do that versus just us spouting off about whatever issue is happening. But we very much believe that that sort of news gathering and that sort of journalism has an important purpose in our society, and as it relates to the very specific community that we cover in business and technology. But this really goes beyond just the niche that we're in. It spreads to all components of journalism. And so, I've often said we're going to go down with the ship on this. I mean, there's no wavering on this for us, and that might cause us problems at the end of the day. But at least we would stay true to our values, stay true to our purpose of doing that high quality of journalism. And I'm hopeful that over time, as I said, that pendulum will swing back to people wanting that sort of information. And I still think it's out there, and I still think people do want it. And GeekWire has a strong following and audience. There are just so many more choices now, and some of those choices are not what I would call journalistic in nature. And we need to make sure that people are responding to, reading, consuming the information that is high quality.
No, this is awesome. Let me end by just getting you to share your one golden nugget, a piece of wisdom that you've accumulated and that you live your life with, that you would like to share with our audience.
Sure. There are so many. I mean, I'm in a unique position that I've interviewed thousands, probably tens of thousands of entrepreneurs and business leaders over the years. And each of their little nuggets has informed myself and has informed us how we think about running and building GeekWire. So when I try to answer that question, I want to put it in the context of there have been hundreds of people that I've taken their wisdom and have tried to incorporate into how we run and operate GeekWire. There have been so many that have stuck with me, but I'll cite one from the late Seattle venture capitalist Tom Huseby, who shared with me a long time ago that you can be successful by just hanging around for a long time. And that might not be the most inspiring message, but it does speak to resilience, persistence. And these are key qualities that you need as an entrepreneur and business leader, is to hang in there. And if you hang in there long enough, you can typically outlast your competition. You're going to find other paths to success. And that persistence is really what defines, I would say, very strong entrepreneurs. So hang around for a long time, you can be successful.
Now, this is such a awesome nugget, right? I mean, persistence and purpose kind of drive, in my vocabulary, humanity forward, right? It is that renewable source of energy that keeps you going. So, John, thank you very much for being on the podcast. And to our listeners, again, persistence, show up with authenticity, and always believe in the importance of journalism, because I believe that it is a fundamental tenet of democracy. That if we want to have a thriving democracy, we've got to have journalism that is corroborated and it is telling the truth.